Welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm your host, Tamiko Pugh, best-selling author, transformational strategist, life and business coach to purpose-driven women, and empowerment influencer. Affectionately called by many, the Empowering Diva. Each week, I'm bringing you inspirational conversations as well as actionable tips and strategies that move you forward in life and business. I believe that empowerment comes from within and can be achieved by honoring yourself, your values, and expressing your talents and gifts. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Now let's jump into today's episode of Living the Empowered Life. Hello and welcome to another episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm your host, the Empowering Diva, Dr. Tamiko Pugh. In today's episode, I'll be chatting with author, speaker, and podcaster, Melony Brown. Melony is an author, speaker, and podcaster who loves to encourage and motivate those who struggle with life's tough challenges to never give up. Life is full of unexpected turns and zigzags, but they strengthen and equip us to follow our passions and purpose. Okay, so you have heard her amazing bio. Now let's go ahead and dive into our conversation with author, speaker, podcaster, Melony Brown. Melony, welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast. How are you today?
I am great, and thanks for having me. I am so excited about our conversation.
So am I. So listen, like you said, you're excited. I'm excited to dive into our conversation. And Melony, I just adore the work that you're doing, as it relates to encouraging and motivating those who struggle with life's tough challenges. It is so important, the work that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I have to tell you, it's all about the passion and purpose that God's put in my heart. It's something that I didn't know I was going to do many years ago when I was teaching, but I cannot imagine life without doing that because it's so important for people to understand that those challenges that we go through are really powerful in that they have so much to point us towards our passion and purpose. And I'm dedicated to doing that for as long as God allows me.
Yes. So what is the passion behind the work that you're doing?
Well, I would have to say that it really stems from the fact that I had a stroke when I was 2 that paralyzed my left side and, of course, left me with some neurological and physical deficits. And I just honestly did not know any different because at age 2, you don't know enough about life to be able to process what has happened to you. And my parents, I give them credit for giving me this overcomer attitude, this fight in me, that I'm not going to just allow the struggles that I have to defeat me. I'm going to live a full life, and it may not look exactly beautiful in the fact that there are some deficits that I still experience even at 50 years old, which is quite a lengthy amount of time from when my first neurological incident happened. But they instilled in me, my parents instilled this fight of you're going to do as much as you can that is considered normal. And I put that in quotation marks because you can still do things. You may have to do a little bit differently, but you can still do things and you can still have a beautiful life. And so the idea that fighting to overcome has been something that has been part of who I am for my entire life. It has been tested many times throughout my life. And I just feel like, unfortunately, there are people out there that face different circumstances and they shut down. They feel like my life is never going to be the same. No one understands. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And just as you do with your ministry, I want to empower those women so that they know I'm not alone. And all these other women that are on my website, whether it's in written form or podcast form, I want them to see that they have gone through some pretty tough experiences themselves, maybe not exactly the same as what that woman is going through, but that they've learned things and they have found a new life, a different life that has purpose, and that those oftentimes those particular struggles that they're facing is what brought them to that purpose.
Yes, and I agree with you on that wholeheartedly. One of the things, though, that you said, and I think I saw this probably on your website, from a young age, I believe the stroke I had when I was 2 didn't just take from me, it gave me. That is such a powerful statement. What do you tell us what you mean when you say it didn't just take from me, it gave me?
Well, it is a very true statement. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with over the course of my life, because it it definitely took my fine motor skills in my left hand. I still have some spasticity in my left foot, which means that my toes, they have a difficult time behaving, is what I like to say. They like to twitch and they like to just curl up. And so that's something that I've carried with me all my life. But internally, I have difficult time retrieving words. In fact, yesterday or Sunday, when my son and his girlfriend were over, I was explaining something as simple as the cat getting into a closet in our kitchen. Well, I could not come up with the word pantry to save my life. And I mean, it felt like 15 minutes went by while I'm processing in my head, what is that word? What is that word? And for somebody who writes and who speaks and who does podcasting, having difficulty retrieving words is something that, is a challenge. But those things were taken from me, but I have gained a sense of understanding and compassion for other people who struggle. I feel like that I would not have the amount of resilience or determination that I have if I had not faced the many different neurological issues that I have faced throughout my life. Could I have gotten them other ways? Maybe. But I feel like those things and others were gains for me. And as I said before, I don't know that I necessarily, even 10 years ago, would have said, I've gained all of these things because of my neurological issues. But as I've gotten older and hopefully wiser, you start to see all the pieces of the puzzle come together, and you look back and you think, wow, that is a part of who I am because of what I've gone through. So to me, those are gains.
I love that. I love the way you look at that, because so often we go through things in life and we experience adversities and all these things in life, and we don't think about what we gain from it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something physical, right? It can be something as simple as, and it's not simple, but it can just be something like you said, resilience, determination. And we don't oftentimes think about that. So coming up with those positive things that you can gain from a situation, I think that makes it easier to face it, or it makes it easier to understand probably why you had to actually go through it.
And I do. I also, and I'm sure that maybe you have experienced this as well. Now that I've gone through this many years, I've gotten to the point when I face any kind of challenge, it doesn't have to be neurological, and thankfully it hasn't been for a bit. But I go through that situation, and instead of saying, oh, this is terrible, I'm like, okay, God, what am I supposed to be learning? That mindset has been transformational for me, because then I'm looking for what I'm supposed to be gaining.
Yes, absolutely. What is the lesson in this? That's one of the things. We have so much in common.
I know we
Especially
do. And
as
I absolutely love that about you and I. And I'm so thankful that we were introduced to each other.
I am too. I am too, because that's one of the things that I kind of embrace too. Like, what is the lesson in this? Right? There is a
Yes.
lesson in every single thing that we go through in life. There's an educational assignment attached to every adversity that we go through. And I mean, just for you, you talked about having compassion for other people. So it makes us more compassionate, the resilience and the determination. Um, you mentioned having a difficult time coming up with words, and I've heard you speak. I've been on your podcast, and I would have never ever known that. Like when you speak, it flows. It's almost like a melody. Like the listen. Well, your name is Melanie, but
No
listen,
pun intended, right?
yeah, but it's everything just flows. I think, when you're doing God's work, He makes a way. Because I would have.
Yes, indeed.
Wow, wow. You also talked about fighting to overcome. Fighting to overcome. Sometimes we give up the fight and we just give in. But I love the fact that you really honed in on fighting to overcome. Can you talk about that just a little bit more? What does it mean to really fight to overcome? What does that mean to you?
Well, that is really the basis for I believe what all God has called me to, in that we we could have a situation, some sort of struggle, and we could just give into it, which is what we talked about a minute ago. But I don't think that that's what God has called us to. He equips us with so many strengths, and those struggles are opportunities for us to put into practice those traits, patience and joy, finding joy despite how difficult life might be. All of those things that He wants us to have, and He has given us the opportunity to have, you don't really understand them until you fight for them, in the sense that going through the struggles that I've had, if you fast forward to my 20s, I started having migraines, and those who have migraines understand what I mean by this. They're they are extremely debilitating, and they suck the life out of you. And I was a young mom at that time. I have two sons, and they were in elementary, early middle school when I was in the depths of that, and it lasted for about 10 years. I'm very thankful my husband didn't like run away, because he he helped so much. He is an amazing man in many ways, but he was so faithful during that time. And that's a time when I had to learn how to fight to overcome. I had to say, this this neurological situation that goes on 2 and 3 times a week. Sometimes I have to miss work. People at the emergency room know me by name because I had to go and get pain medicine because what I was taking wasn't doing the job. All of those times I had to fight to continue to live the life that I felt like God was calling me to, and that was teaching at the time. I missed some work, but I had to figure out how to continue my life as a teacher, as a mother, and as a wife during all of those times. And so that tested whether I was going to be resilient or not. That was going to be that would test whether or not I would be determined to push through, even on the days when I did not feel great. I got to the point where I could go to work when I was having a migraine, as long as it was kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 4 or less.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something like, look at her, she's wearing all these badges of pushing through even when she feels bad. If I had not done that, I don't know that they would have continued to let me be a teacher, because I would have missed so much work. And that was an opportunity for me to fight to overcome for something, teaching, that I felt was a gift that God had given me, and was a purpose that He had given me. And so to me, fighting to overcome is a mindset where you say, what has happened to me is awful. I hate it. I cannot live here. I cannot let it take my life, not in the sense of dying necessarily, but stripping away the passion that you have for your job, the gift of being a mother and a wife. I couldn't let those migraines take that away from me. And so I fought to overcome so that I would get to a place. And that also included finding medication that worked. And finally, towards the end of my 30s, I got to finding a medicine that still is continuing to work, that I still have them, but not anywhere near as frequent or as debilitating.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for fighting to overcome. Thank you for sharing your story and giving other people hope. One of the things you mentioned, your neurological issues. So it comes from is it a cerebrovascular disease? Can you tell us the name of that for those who may not understand? What is the name of that disease?
Yes. And I didn't find out about this disease until I was 45 years old and had the stroke at age 2, had the migraines for about a decade. And then I started having mini strokes, which all of those are neurological. And so finally, on my 4th mini stroke, my neurologist said, I think we need to see the neurosurgeon because what you are experiencing, I think, is called moyamoya disease. And it's spelled Moya, Moya. And when he said that, I was like, I've never heard that word before. I don't even understand what you're saying. And so we did what's called an angiogram. And oftentimes an angiogram is of the heart to determine heart difficulties. But they did one of my brain. And within 20 minutes, the neurosurgeon came back and said, yes, indeed, you have moyamoya. And I said, well, you're going to have to explain that to me. And where do we go from here? It was very scary when he said, it is a rare cerebrovascular disease in which when you were formed in your mother's womb, you had a difficulty with the middle cerebral artery in your brain. And instead of it going a straight path to wherever it needed to go, yours went straight for a bit and then had this big patch of what, if you live in Atlanta, you know what I mean by this, spaghetti junction,
Mm-hmm.
and then kept going straight. And so that big cluster of blood vessels was causing the stroke and the mini stroke and all of the migraines. And so I was blown away, but at the same time, having had this as part of my life for my entire life and not having a name for it, now all of a sudden I have a name for it. As scary as it was empowering because at least I knew what it was. Because before, I knew something was not right. I knew that there had to be an explanation, but no one could give one to me. And so now that's where the fighter in me came out. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And he said, well, that means brain surgery. Now, I can't guarantee that it's going to stop it because this is a progressive disease, but it will definitely slow it. So 5 years ago, this March, I had what's called an indirect brain bypass surgery. And so they took a blood vessel above my left ear and put it into the part of my brain that had not been receiving oxygen my entire life. And by doing this rerouting, it allowed new blood vessels to be formed so that spaghetti junction area at some point, and I don't know when this happened, just kind of died off, meaning that it no longer was being used. And so I've had a few mini strokes, but they have been very mild. But since I had that surgery 5 years ago, I am living large. I mean, I am living large. The symptoms that I've had, the residual that I've had all my life, have not necessarily disappeared, but because I'm getting such great blood flow in my head, then I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do before. And so I am incredibly thankful to God for sparing my life and obviously allowing me to live all those years when I could have easily had a massive stroke and died. Makes me feel like I have a big purpose, that He is equipping me for something powerful in my life. And so I'm excited by that. I'm challenged by it, and I'm just excited to see where He leads me.
Wow, absolutely. That is so powerful. Melony, you definitely are one of those people. You're living a full life in spite of, right? In spite of your circumstances. You have a beautiful life, and it's because God has His hand on you. And I really believe that there is so much more for you. You're here for a specific reason. You definitely have a purpose, and I'm enjoying hearing about it.
Well, thank you. And I do talk about and share my story, not to say, look at me. I really want to make it very clear that I know that I would not be doing what I'm doing but for God. He has been such a critical and important and very necessary part of my life. But I feel like, just like in Revelation, and I know that this is not about us specifically, it was when Michael and his angels were fighting against a dragon in Revelation 3. But this part of that scenario is what we are to do with the things that we have fought to overcome. And it says, they triumphed over him, meaning the dragon, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And so when I share my story, it's about my testimony and saying, God did this through me.
Yes, that is so motivating. You're definitely a motivator. And speaking of motivation and motivating, you have the Motivate Me project. Tell us about that and how does it work?
I have absolutely loved this. Going through COVID, as all of us did, about the spring of last year is when it started, and I would say probably within about 2 months of it starting, you could see posts on social media, and you could hear people when you were allowed to get anywhere close to them. You could hear and see the fatigue and the way that social distancing and not being able to interact and not being able to go to school and working from home and having all these different responsibilities, it kind of sucked the life out of us. We started becoming unfocused and unmotivated, and we were just like plodding through life. And some people were able to handle it well. Some people were able to fight to overcome. But it's been going on for a while now, and all of us are kind of, as this New York Times article that came out, I think last week, talked about, we're languishing. And that's not necessarily that we're in this deep pit of depression, but we're just, as he said, seeing life through this foggy windshield. And it just gives this lethargic effect and this unmotivated effect. And so God pointed all of that out to me even back then, and I said, so what am I supposed to do with that? I'm the kind of person who loves to encourage and motivate people. So what am I supposed to do with that? And over the course of time, it came to me that he has given me a platform to reach people with my website and with my speaking and with the podcast, to reach people and to encourage and motivate them. So as time went on, we put together a project called the Motivate Me Project. And it is a daily 3-minute audio text that's delivered to your phone. And it has motivation and encouragement to encourage you to keep pursuing those dreams, to live life fully. And so it has been an incredible journey for me. And I have gotten great feedback from those who subscribe, that it just keeps you, as it says, keeps you motivated for the day and reminds you that you have a purpose and that we are going to get through these difficult times.
Wow, I love that. And what a perfect time, right? During COVID, when we actually needed some motivation. And so I think that God definitely breathed that project into you. And thank you for being obedient. Even on your site, it says motivation fuels dreams. And so you get to do that every day through the Motivate Me project.
Yes. So if your listeners are interested, it is a subscription-based service. And the reason that it costs you guys something is because it really is expensive to do an audio text that is daily. And so I'm really not making a ton of money on this, as I know part of your business model is that you need to make money because, of course, as we are pursuing our dreams and impacting lives, you want to do that as your main focus, and that is always my main focus. But I do have to make money, and I have to at least offset my cost and maybe make a little bit more. So it is a subscription-based service at themotivatemeproject.com. It is $10 a month. So basically that averages out to about 33 cents a day for you to start your day and really get your mindset in the right place so that you are no longer languishing, as that author from the New York Times said, that we are moving forward and that we are fulfilling what God has put on our hearts. We're not going to let COVID take anything else. We're going to gain something.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And hey, 33 cents a day. I mean, that's an investment in your personal development, right? So we can spare 33 cents a day to invest in our purpose, in our personal development. So I love it, love it, love it. You're definitely using the platform that God gave you to make a difference.
Well, I am honored to do it. And I also have as an option right now that you can subscribe for the rest of the year at a lower cost. And so for the remainder of the year, it's $68. And again, that even reduces the cost down. I haven't done the math, but it reduces it down to just, what can you get for 30 cents a day? I mean, there's nothing that you can go to the store and get for 30 cents a day. And this is something that is going to motivate you and encourage you. And as you, and I love your word empower. And so I'm going to use that in mine, incorporate it in mine as well. But it empowers you to live that life and to live it fully and to enjoy, just enjoy life. Right now, it's hard to find that joy in life. And so that's what it's pushing you to. It's pushing you to enjoy life and to live out your purpose.
Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. So, Melanie, the other thing you enjoy doing is having overcomers share their projects. So, you have an overcomer project, Overcomers Never Give Up. Can you
Yes.
tell us about that?
So, it's part of my website. And for many years, I did it in the form of written stories. I would interview women who have faced various life's tough challenges. So, it's not going to be a repeat breast cancer story. There are breast cancer stories on there, but it is a wide variety. It could be addiction, it could be abuse, it could be various different health struggles. I've interviewed one on my written stories that I shared her story in written form, but then also on the podcast, I've interviewed 2 Holocaust survivors. And wow,
Amazing.
what we can learn from those ladies.
Wow.
And so over the course of the last 8 years, I've shared either in written form or on podcast form, 120 overcomer stories. So whatever your listener is facing, there is a very, very good chance that I have interviewed a person that has faced that same challenge. And I don't just talk about what they've overcome, but what they've learned and what advice they have for somebody else who is struggling. Because just like you, I don't want us to wallow in and just allow our stories to become our identity. They are very much a part of who we are, but what we've learned and what advice we could share with others, not in a I know better kind of way, but here's where I made a mistake, and here's what I learned from that, and here's what would be a better route to go. Those are the kinds of things that allow those who read or listen to those stories to say, hey, I'm not alone. And then also, as I'm going through my struggles, maybe I could do the things she did. And instead of me making a ton of mistakes, I could learn from what she's learned from.
Absolutely. And that's what our stories are for us to teach and be able to allow other people to see that we made it through, or as a
Yes,
lesson for them, or to give hope to those other people. So I love
absolutely.
that. I love the concept of the overcomers. And I love how it says overcomers never give up. Because in order to be an overcomer, you didn't give up. So I love that overcomers never give up.
And you might have noticed this with your own journey. We don't just face one life's tough challenge. So we never give up, even though we're going to face other challenges.
That's right.
Because what we've learned is going to help us for those future challenges.
Absolutely. You are absolutely right about that. Melanie, this is a great conversation. We're talking about motivation and empowering people. What does it mean to you to live an empowered life?
Oh, you're going to turn it on me, huh? You're going to put that on me. I feel like living an empowered life is really about using everything that we've gone through, the good, the bad, the ugly, those things that we wish we wouldn't have done, and allowing those things to shape us in such a way that it is the fuel for our passion and purpose. And so, all the things that I've gone through, whether it's neurological issues or brain surgery or any of the things, other things that I've gone through, those empower me to live out what I know God has put on my heart as my passion and purpose. And it's not just about me. And I know that you talk about this on your website and in your books. It's about impacting others' lives, because that's really what we're here for, is that we are a huge community of people, and we're here to encourage and inspire and motivate each other. Because just because I've gone through all of this and I have a ministry for this, I still need encouragement from other people, and I need them to impact my lives. And if we're all doing that, can you imagine what kind of world this would be?
Amazing. I posted something on social media a few weeks ago, when the encourager needs encouragement. And so what you just said was so in alignment with that. As a person who empowers and encourages other people, we need that same encouragement in return. And so I found that in you. And so we're friends now, whether you know it or not.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm definitely very interested in continuing a friendship with you.
Yes, absolutely. So, Melanie, do you have any upcoming initiatives that you'd like for us to support? What's next for you?
I would absolutely love some prayers, because I have been working on my book for, I don't even want to admit how many years, and I am making room in my schedule and saying no to some things that I love to do, but it's time. I need to finish this book. And so I've been working on this book, and my goal is to finish it by the end of the summer and work towards publication.
I love it. I believe that you can do that. I'll be your accountability partner if you need me
Woo,
to.
yes.
I'll be praying for you in that area. So we're going to get this book done, because there are lives that need to be impacted.
Well, I appreciate your support and accountability. I will accept that.
Awesome. So before we close out, do you have a final thought or a charge for the audience?
Absolutely. I believe very, very strongly that we are all going to face life's tough challenges. Where we figure out who we are is in those challenges. And it really comes down to two choices. Are you going to live in defeat and allow what has happened to you to defeat you and keep you from the life that God has called you to, but that you want to enjoy? Or are you going to fight to overcome and figure out what it's teaching you and how that works into God's big plan for your life, with the passion and purpose that He has given you to impact lives? And so, fighting to overcome is a never give up type mentality, but it's one that will allow you to face those challenges and not just crumble. That you're like, all right, bring it on. And what am I going to learn? And what can I gain? And how is this going to help me in the future, not just for my life, but for the lives of others?
Yes, Melanie, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing with us today. I took a lot of great nuggets from our conversation. I'm sure everyone else has too. And I really look forward to supporting you and supporting your upcoming initiatives. So thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I am so blessed to know you and continue our friendship.
Thank you for tuning in to another powerful episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with my fellow overcomer, Melony Brown, and that you were able to draw some inspiration as you continue your journey of living an empowered life. And remember, your hardest times often lead to the greatest moments of your life. keep going. Ladies, it's time to identify and live your life purpose. It's time to live life according to your values. It's time to set goals that move you forward in life and business. It's time to unleash your confidence. It's time to fearlessly walk in your authentic power. Ladies, it's time to live the empowered life.